got it. Sorry, it took me a minute because I don't do this way every time.
It says we're live streaming now, so.
We should be. I think we should be good. I'm going to just double check, but I will mute myself and hopefully we got everything to work.
Put it on speaker view, please. If it isn't, I can't tell. No.
All right, I think we're ready to call this meeting of the City of Ithaca Planning and Development Board to order. Welcome to our December 21st, 2021 meeting. Happy solstice to everybody. May you enjoy the lengthening of days. Lisa, anything that we want to discuss about the agenda? Any changes to the agenda?
The only change to the agenda is the first item says recommendation to BZA, but we actually don't have a referral from BZA yet, so we won't do that recommendation.
Thank you. Approval of minutes. I believe Anya sent me minutes for 2 recent meetings, September and October. Would board members would anyone like to motion that we discuss and approve those minutes? Emily moves and Elizabeth seconds. Any discussion around minutes? Any questions? Okay, all in favor of, should we do them one at a time?
You can do them together.
Together, okay. All in favor of accepting the September and October 2021 minutes? Raise your hands. Emily says yes. Mitch says yes. CJ says yes. Elizabeth says yes by show of hands. And Mackenzie also, I say yes. Thank you. And now public comment. Do we have anybody from the public in the waiting room or having written to us?
We have nobody who signed up for public comment or sent public comment.
Okay. Seeing as we have no public hearings on the agenda tonight, we might not have opportunity to hear from you if you are a member of the public and want to speak. Now is your time. But I think in absence of that call, we will move along to site plan review. First on the agenda being Cayuga Park. I see a couple of people coming in. Hello, please introduce yourselves and we will go ahead and have a short presentation on your final signage update.
Okay, is there anybody else on your project team who should be here? I have Kate and Stephen.
Yes, they're both for this project. If we have Megan Davenport, she's also part of this.
She's not here.
Okay.
Dave Knapp should be getting on. Here he is. Okay.
All right, I think we can get started. Good evening, everyone. We're here to provide an update to our building signage for Cayuga Park Medical Center. And last time we have presented a package to the board, and we're just providing some updates to our package and to respond to the comments that we received last time.
Wonderful, thank you.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So, I mean, we have provided a letter to stating that we're conformed with the waterfront design guidelines. We have been asked to do this last time. So we're just, listing some guidelines from the, we're just, writing to say that we're conformed with the waterfront design guidelines. So if you remember from last time, we have proposed 6 different signage for the building. And now this time we have removed number 1, as we feel that that is the least important sign for the entire building. And we feel all the other 5 are equally important. And we didn't change the number just for the sake of ease of reference. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 2 is the one facing northbound of Route 13. This one is really important just because for whoever coming from northbound of Route 13, we'll see that Cayuga Health is right here, and this sign will be illuminated. And number 3 will be the one facing southbound of Route 13. Is equally important just because for people who are on Route 13 to easily identify this building as Cayuga Health. And then number 4 is this building signage. It should also read as CMC immediate care. You will see the text in the following short drawings, but this rendering indicating the location of the sign. We feel this is really important for the pedestrian level just because the main entrance, which is right here, will be closed at 6 or 5. Sorry, it'll be closed at 5 o'clock. And then this entrance to the immediate care will stay open till 10 p.m. So we feel this sign should be stay just because for those patients who are coming in late need to identify this as the main entrance after hours. Then this is the net view. This will be internally illuminated as well. And then as you can see, number 1 was removed. This one was the one facing inlet. And then number 5 is the wayfinding signage indicating Cayuga Health, because we are sharing the parking lot with a lot of other people, like the apartment right next to us. We feel that it is really important to indicate this building is the Cayuga Health for both pedestrian and vehicular. So number 5 is our sign for the wayfinding, and number 6 indicating main entrance. This is a little illegible, but we also feel that because we have 2 different entrances, it's important to say that this is the main entrance that you need to get into if you are here. And then this is the drop-off zone for the cars to be. So, and a night view of that. And some sections. So that's the one facing northbound of Route 13. And this is facing in southbound. And number 4 is the immediate care sign. And number 5 and 6, you see that they are kind of from a 90-degree angle facing different directions of the sidewalk and road. Just more sections. And this one was also requested last time from one of the board members. So the upper image kind of shows what our sign will look like during the night. So the brightness is very similar to this one right here, but this one is our neighbor property, the Green Star. So we're not gonna be as bright as this, but just a good reference to provide. And then these are some short drawings to kind of show you how they're connected and how they're being lit up during the night. They are all internally LED illuminated, and only the letters and the logo are being illuminated. And this is the text that going for the number 4 facing the sidewalk and road, internal road. And we're providing 2 specifications cut sheet at the end, just in case anyone from the board would love to know what kind of LED light we're using. And that's it for our presentation. If anyone has any comments, please let us know. One thing I would like to bring up is that we said last time we were going to attend the BZA in January, but we have been told from the city that we are being pushed to February. So we're not going to do that in January, but we're hoping that we are okay for this planning board so we don't have to come back for another planning board meeting.
Great, thank you. Well, let's take it around to board members. Let us know what your feedback is to the removal of the sign, the existing signs, and we are not going to be making an official recommendation to the BZA. We don't have to this month necessarily, so if there's something that you want to see changed, we do have the opportunity to ask for that. We also could make a recommendation if we feel comfortable moving forward. So please share your thoughts around that, and I'll go down the list of people as I see them and start with Emily.
Sure, thank you. I think this package is completely appropriate. It's a really big building with a lot of spaces and different points of access. And I think by eliminating that sign facing the inlet, the rest feel perfectly appropriate in wayfinding and the right scale for the building. So I like this package moving forward.
Thanks. CJ?
Yeah, thanks for this. I'm not sure what the Environmental Management Council might have to say about the color temperature of the LEDs. I assume that this is for wayfinding to have them at 7,000 K, but they might prefer the warm white. I have no further comments beyond that. Thanks.
Thank you, CJ. Mitch?
This looks good. I'm glad the sign on the back got removed. I think that's the right move. I'm curious to know where we stand with the variances. I'm still unclear as exactly what is over here. Is it the number of signs, is it the size of the signs? Can you just tell me clearly what the variances you're seeking?
Yep, so the code allows for 2 building signs, each one under 50 square feet. So all of the signs we are proposing are under 50 square feet. So we're not asking for a variance for oversized signs, but we do need to ask variance for 3 additional signs on the building.
Okay, so do you have to like identify which of the 3 you're asking for, or how does that work? Lisa, I guess the question for
We
you.
haven't gotten the zoning analysis yet because they're not on the BZA agenda yet. So next month you'll get the zoning analysis that says exactly how they're not in compliance.
Okay. All right.
They are.
Thanks. Yeah. So I agree with Emily. I think the signs look appropriate to the building. I think they look nice. One thing in your letter, you mentioned that the lights will be turned off at night and turned off 2 hours after business is closed. So
That's right.
what is the close of business again?
So the main entrance, which is right here, will be closed at around 5 p.m., but then the immediate care will be closed at 10 p.m.
So the large signs at the top of the building facing Route 13 will be turned off at midnight? Is that?
Yeah, that's the plan. So it's on the photo cell system, everything will be turned off 2 hours after business hour.
Okay, there were just 2 different times you're talking about. One's 5 p.m., one's 10 p.m. So I'm just curious when the large banner signs on the building will be turned off. I'm still not clear about that.
Be turned off at 12.
Okay.
All of, yep.
To answer your question, Mitch, do you have follow-up questions about that?
Just curious what other buildings are doing with their lighted signs, in downtown, in this area, whether that's an issue for surrounding neighbors. I don't know how to answer that, but just curious.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
We don't
Mitch.
generally have signs that high up on the building in other parts of the city. These are new, we don't generally have illuminated signs that high up. For the Guthrie building, you requested that they turn them off after business hours.
Just for reference, Guthrie is kind of a similar thing. We're using the photo cell and we turned off 2 hours after business hour. So it's the same timer and system. This is
What is the 2-hour cushion for?
just leaving the light on for some other, like the staff can leave a little later after business hour, right? And some other people might be around for another, I don't know, for another hour or so. And Stephen, maybe you can chime in a little bit about how you wanted this to be.
Yeah, the reason, because it's the immediate care, our immediate care hours are until 10. But by the nature of immediate care, if somebody is showing up right at 10, we're not going to be sending them away. So oftentimes we'll still be treating patients until after that. And that's why we were requesting kind of that buffer, because although the hours say 10, it's not like a regular business where we're just going to lock the doors at 10.
Okay, yeah, thanks for explaining. Mitch, anything else? Do you feel complete? Okay. Elizabeth?
Everyone, yeah, I agree with everybody. I think these signs look good. I wonder if the BZA considers just the larger tall signs as building signs, and then the main entrance and CMA, whatever, as just like wayfinding signs. does it matter where on the building it is, or?
It doesn't matter where, it matters what the content of the sign. So if it in any way identifies a business, then it's a sign. If it just says entrance, maybe it wouldn't be, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see what the.
What they say. Yeah, okay. Be interesting to know what they say about that, because I know that in a lot of other buildings, there's plenty of other signs, you know, around the building for different, like suite A or suite B, or, you know, so.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. I actually had a similar question that throughout the property, there are directional signs and wayfinding signs for cars and parking signs that probably have the logo on them. And I am very curious how those contribute to general signage. They're not on the building, but I think that's something that we need to see in the zoning analysis as well. So I won't say whether or not Lisa will be the one who can let us know if you need to return to a meeting next month, but I think that the planning board will want to continue deliberating next month once we have seen the zoning analysis before you're on the BZA agenda. But it sounds like in general, you're getting really positive feedback about the sign package aesthetically. So, you know, we are in favor of the direction, the placement of signs, but it does seem as if there might be a question about how many ancillary signs do or do not contribute, and which of these signs might be considered the extra ones or the ones in excess. Lisa, do you think that the applicant should return next month, or can we just say, you know, good night to them for now? And I see Elizabeth's hand also.
Do you want to go first? And I can answer the question.
Sure. The other question I had was, is it possible to lower the foot candles or the lighting after a certain time? Like, you can still turn it on, but it won't be as bright as when you when you have it on after a certain time, like after 6 or 7.
Maybe CMC can speak a little bit about this, but I think we're open for options like that.
Yeah, I think that would be a nice compromise, and you would still have a backlit sign, but it wouldn't be as bright and offer as much contrast at night.
Okay, thank you. Seems like a great suggestion to take back. Lisa?
I would say that I would recommend that the applicant comes next month for the appeal, just because that's their opportunity to answer questions if they have any. I mean, you know, they don't have to, but you may have questions that they can answer.
Right. Okay. Well, then I guess you've gotten some feedback about the signs, maybe minor programmatic changes to them, and we have a zoning analysis to review. Any questions or final thoughts from anyone on the applicant team? Doesn't look like it. Planning board, anything you're holding? No, wonderful. Well, then thank you for your time tonight, letting you out a little bit early. Hope you have a happy holiday wintertime break season, however you do it. And
Thanks, everybody.
yeah, thank you. And we'll see you next month and hopefully get moving on through with it.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Kate's already here. How many of you are coming tonight, Kate?
You might see Kelly Suave or Crystal Van Gasbeck or David Stern in the waiting room from the farmer's market. But that should be it. So it looks like David is here. So that's great. Okay, so this is our project team. So we're here with are we able to get started now?
Yes, I think we can begin. Mostly what we want to be talking about is the part 3 of the fief, but it looks like you have maybe some updates to give us around views and access. So we're happy to get a presentation from you and then we'll deliberate.
Sure. We have a few conceptual views of the site that we'd like to share that we were asked to prepare, so we can go over these and then move into the part 3. So
Okay.
this view is taken from across the inlet. This is a highly rendered image, as you can probably tell. So, you know, the lumps in the background are hills, but the focus is on the view of the proposed new building that will be constructed at some point in the future, but that is part of the seeker review. So if there are any questions about this view, we can go back to it. Otherwise, we are taking these shots from the 3rd Street entrance into the property. So this is a little bit farther out on the left side. There are some pending design changes that will affect this. So on the left side of the image, you see these trees in a planted area. Based on our recent conversations during PRC, that area may change to become a bus stop space. There may also be plantings as part of that, but it may not be as extensively planted as shown here. Continuing further up, this is planted pretty densely and shown during the summer season, so you cannot really see the building until you get, I think, to the next image. So you can see the building in basically near the horizon of this image, and part of the design strategy that we took with the parking area was to orient the parking aisles perpendicular to the building near the 3rd Street entrance so that the wayfinding to the farmers market is more intuitive than it is today, but still have a planted strip between parking spaces. You can also see that we're indicating a bike lane in that last image that will connect over to the proposed pedestrian plaza on the northeast side of the building. We had space in the driving route for that. And this next image is somewhat in process. We have some constraints that we're working with in the parking area, such as large utility poles that cannot move. But this shows and it doesn't really show the vertical condition very well here, but between the asphalt and the concrete. But this is a 5-foot walkway that goes through the parking area leading to the building that you can see behind trees near the horizon with a 3-foot planting strip. We're contending with having enough room for pedestrians, but also having room for plantings here. So if it's possible, this will be widened, and that's something that may or may not be able to come in our next set of design updates. And I believe that is it.
All right, any clarifying questions quickly from anyone on the board? Raise your hand if you want to go back to anything. Doesn't look like it. Obviously, we'll encourage you to see if we can widen that sidewalk at all. Thinking about 2 people shoulder to shoulder, that's 5 feet is pretty. I felt like there was a time when we said minimum of 6 feet in some places. I don't know. I see a couple of hands. I'm going to start with Emily and then to Lisa.
My question is about contrast for the bike lane. And it could just be, these renderings might be dark, but I wonder if that green should be white or yellow or something a little more high contrast.
Right.
That's my only comment for now.
Yep.
Thanks. Lisa.
Can you go back? Can you go to the next slide after this? So it's the same comment. I keep saying that looks beautiful, but I can see the cars running into the trees. I can see the cars over the sidewalks. I just don't know how you're gonna fit everything in there and have it look and be lush like that. So it needs more, I feel like it needs more development to really nail down how that's really actually gonna work to get the soil volume for the trees and plants and have the cars not hit up against the trees or the pedestrians or.
Elizabeth?
I was going to say that they'll need wheel stops or something if they don't want an actual curb there for drainage. As far as the width, I think parking lots typically have less width and it's just for one person at a time, you know, for access, because they're usually really tight anyway. I do love the lushness, but did I already ask this question? Who was in charge of maintaining all that?
The market will ultimately be, and David can speak to that a bit. They have a committee of people that are members that help maintain.
Okay.
Yeah, as part of the cooperative, you know, people are supposed to assist with maintenance for work hours. We'll have to see, what our needs are going to be. We could outsource it, of course, in the future.
Right. It'd be, you know, good for you to think about plantings that are native that don't need a lot of care.
Yep.
Yes, I think that would be great from a lot of perspectives.
Yeah. Looks good though. I like all the trees and yeah. Lighting, is there going to be lighting out in this area?
There will be some, and again, we're only at a 30% stage of
Right.
design, but in our next 60% update, you'll see probably bollard lighting in this area, unless we decide to go with more of a 14-foot pedestrian scale light down this row. So it'll be one or the other, but this sidewalk will have lighting in it, as well as more global parking lot lighting.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Why do you need lighting in it? There's no lighting there now. Is it for evening events? Or?
Yeah, that's actually been a pretty big point of discussion with the market, as events are in pretty high demand, and part of the intention of the redesign, especially of the building, is to host events more frequently, more regularly, more dependably also, in terms of rain events that can cancel events today. So short days during the fall, winter, spring make going to a wedding, for example, a little bit uncomfortable for some guests, is what we're hearing from the market. So they'd like a modest amount of lighting that's dark sky compliant and everything else, but lighting is proposed in this.
Yeah, I support it being designed in such a way that attendees feel safe, and also obviously to, you know, preserve the quiet nature of the space, I suppose, at many times when there aren't events. Mitch?
We did get some public comment about the importance of the bikes accessing the site, and the safety and the sight lines and the generosity of the bike infrastructure, bike parking. And I think that's a really good point. So it's kind of hard to tell the totality of, what's going on here with bikes. I see the bike lane. Is it 5 feet wide? Is that what you're able to fit? 5 foot dedicated lane?
6 feet.
6 feet. Yeah. So if they're a painted icon in that lane that is typically seen in a dedicated bike lane, where all the bike racks are, how many bike racks, like there should probably just be a page dedicated to like the bike infrastructure of the new, Ithaca Farmers Market. I think that would be really great. The other thing is that as we talked about in Project Review Committee, the bus stop at the front, and you mentioned that the rendering was not current. And so I think we need to see how the public transit side of this works, because that bus stop that you originally had wasn't really working from a design perspective. It was in the middle of a sidewalk crossing. So, you know, how that entrance works with buses and cars and bikes all coming together at that point is really important.
Thanks, Mitch. I see Elizabeth's hand up. Want to make sure also that we make space for CJ or Emily if they have thoughts, but Elizabeth, go for it.
I was just going to follow up on the comments on lighting. Usually it's a safety concern to have a minimum level of lighting, even if it's not real bright, but so that you can see where you're going and if you're tripping on anything. And the other question I was going to have, is there any thought on providing covered bike parking? I don't see that very often, but I often feel myself that I would really appreciate some covered bike parking, or, you know, somewhere.
That is in the plan, and I believe that there's text that addresses that in the current FEAF. If not, there are covered bike spaces proposed.
Great, thanks.
Well, maybe now's a good time to transition to that document. Shall we look through it together? I think that there might be minimal updates since last time we've looked through it. Lisa, are we looking specifically for things that are highlighted? Or as the changes to review?
The highlighted things are the outstanding items. I'm going to let Nikki take the lead on this one because she has worked harder, much harder on it than I have.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
please.
correct, Mackenzie.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Anything else you want to say to orient us towards the part 3?
No, I think just, yeah, the yellow, are you asking me or the applicant side?
Yeah, just
The,
asking
the
you.
yellow highlight, and then Kate, you probably also want to mention, or your team, we talked about at the PRC, the railings, and whether there's an option or alternative to not have railings, because
Yep.
it did send us something, but the planning board has not seen it yet.
Sure. Basically, after looking at it more carefully, we will, as a market team, design the waterfront so that railings are not needed, based on our interpretation of the AASHTO code. So we sent planning and copied engineering staff on that analysis. We are still in a very conceptual phase of design for the waterfront, but we know the general footprint that it will need, and we feel that we have an approach that means that views will not be obstructed along the water, because we understand that that's an important part of the experience.
Thank you for that update. I think it is probably appreciated broadly among the board, and we look forward to further updates about that.
Yeah, and as Kate said, the engineering department will look at that as well. So we'll have information from them.
Great. And I guess the other thing that I just want to bring up before we dig in page by page is design review. How much more of a detailed design review process might they go through aside from PRC and site plan review, or shall we specify that they, not are subject to, but are meeting design review?
So they did basically design review for the parking lot, and when they come back with the building and the other parts of the design fully developed later, the board will do design review at that time.
Each piece at a time. Yep. Okay. And so I just want to make sure that the part 3 specifies that the project studies in the market district, this is on page 1, is subject to design review, that we have concluded design review for the parking lot specifically, but that, these other phases listed above have not received design review yet, that's not what this part is about. So, okay, great. Any questions popping up on page 1 for anybody? Let's just, take a moment on each page, one at a time. If anything strikes you or there's an update that you want to discuss, please call it out. We might all have our eyes down for a minute.
I did wonder what and it's the second, what you're calling a pedestrian promenade, which is actually the fire access road, as well as in phase It's not in the first phase of the project. That's what I understood. Is that in the first phase or not? What is the?
It is, it's included
Okay,
as
all right,
part of
all
the
right.
parking area improvements. Yep.
That can get removed.
Lisa, I have a question actually, or maybe Nikki, maybe this question's for Nikki. There is so much in the part 3 about the buildings, like, and the shoreline and whatnot. Is it reasonable to separate the parking lot and have it to have its own fee if that's really what we're approving right now?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, we discussed this with the applicant. And we decided that they wanted to move forward with the whole thing. I think we have enough information to do an environmental review for the whole thing. Obviously, we have more information about the parking lot, less information, but we have enough to do to look at, you know, broad impacts. If they
The
were
footprint of the building, right?
yeah, I mean, there's still, the board can still, you know, during site plan review can still, you know, really get into the details of design of all of those things. But if they were to come back with changes to what they're proposing, for instance, a railing, you know, you would read the environmental review.
Right. Well, I'm looking on page 3 under shoreline, and something like the, you know, the trees to be removed and what that limestone block wall will look like. I mean, yes, maybe we can kind of preemptively approve the environmental impacts of those things, but it seems like maybe we should be clear that we're doing so without yet having seen like that finalized shoreline plan, right? We haven't seen visuals for it yet. Is that okay to maybe specify that in some way?
Yeah, I think I've said that they should have a pre-application with DC or, you know, to find out if they're going to need a permit and then what the conditions of that permit would be. So that would be in the fee, you know, if they.
Yeah, so this is this piece, some of this is contingent upon working with DC.
So just to talk a little bit about that, what form would that take? Because we anticipate just complying with all of the checklist of the DEC permit when we're ready to make that submission. We would not be going about it in any different way.
I think that would suffice for my, you know, personal needs around it. Mitch, you've got your hand up.
The trees to be removed are noted to be along the trail and near the shoreline. Does that include the trees being removed in the parking lot, which look pretty extensive?
The section under shoreline, no, that's just for the shoreline. You're right. The other trees would be under the parking lot.
Does that show up in the part 3 anywhere?
Under on page 2.
Page 2. On page 2 is the section about the parking lot, but I'm not sure if it says that trees are going to be removed. So
it just seems like the trees were counted on the shoreline, but not counted in the parking lot. And I think we need a totality of understanding of how many trees are coming out, what their sizes are, and what landscaping is going back in. That's really important.
I agree with that. Some more information about trees, number of them, species of them, and plan for replanting.
So typically, you know, especially in a situation like this where there are a lot of trees being removed, that you would supply a schedule of trees to be removed and then a schedule of new trees. Maybe you don't have to get into all the shrubs and everything, but a schedule of new trees that would be.
Yep. The existing conditions plan notes the species of trees above a certain caliper. For example,
does it have like a schedule? Like, does it have
no. But we can prepare a schedule. We can just count, I guess.
We have a demolition plan that will indicate which tree are coming down. I guess we can submit that as part of the next mission.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you. We don't want to make, extra busy work for you, but it does feel important to note. I agree with Mitch. That is
And
information.
sorry, I have a question about that too. Kate, I know you had mentioned, did you guys meet with Jean Grace out at the parking lot? The forester,
We
the city
talked to
forester?
her very early in the
Okay.
project, but we haven't gone over our exact tree protection plan. We have our typical details shown in the 30% set that was submitted a few months ago. And as Ife said, it indicates the trees in there that will be removed, but we don't have a schedule that quantifies all of the trees, but we can easily do that because we have that information.
great.
But we were anticipating coordinating with the city forester at the 60% phase, because as of now, in the 30% set, for example, you have a little bit more of a placeholder planting plan, but without knowing the drainage, we have not prepared an actual planting plan yet. So the intention is to have native species and so on, but the soil and moisture characteristics are going to drive what those selections will be.
Sure. Okay, great. Yeah, and I think Jean would be a good resource just because I don't think she was as cautious about the trees in the parking lot. A lot of them aren't in good shape, but
yeah, that's a good way to put it. She kind of was open to changing that, but we all know
a good thing to record. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, looking on page 6, also at the top, maybe some of the things you can talk to the city forester about are tree protection, as was mentioned earlier in the parking lot, wheel stops, things like that, adequate soil volume.
Yep.
Thank you. We did see some visualizations of the project site from across the lake, also looking at this highlighted part on page 6, so we can update that. We've gotten some, we got some feedback to what you presented tonight, but it doesn't seem like there was anything of concern around those particular visualizations. I have a question about, when we're talking about like making changes to a peripheral, peripheral to a habitat. I see here, let me see where it is. That the lead agency has maybe determined that there's no impact because nothing is being changed in the water. Who is the final authority also? Would that be through the SWIP process, or who is the final authority on that, on the inlet water, not necessarily groundwater or surface water, but the peripheral water nearby? What body would we seek?
So inlet, the actual water, like the shoreline of the inlet.
Yeah, like the shore. Yes, exactly. Like in the spaces where we're discussing the trees on the shoreline and the wall being built on the shoreline, it specifies that nothing is going to be changed in the water. So but I kind of feel like that's a thing that seems, I see Elizabeth chatting that maybe it's DEC, or I don't know if it's
Army Corps of Engineer.
Yeah. It seems like it would give me peace of mind to know that somebody that oversees that waterway, can agree that no changes are being made to the water. Or that because no direct, the project doesn't take place directly in the water. I want a second. Who would do that? Is that part of the process already?
Would permit, right? DC would permit any, like if they were building a wall in the water, they would be the permitting authority. And so that's again why I have asked the applicant to have a pre-meeting with DC. It happens all the time. Or get somebody in the permitting office to look at the drawings and say, this is the kind of permit you would need, or no, this doesn't need a permit.
I see. And that's kind of what we were saying before. And Kate, you said that you were just going to go through the checkbox list of things for the permit. I guess we will just want to see that confirmation one way or the other, like that the permit's been received or that it's not needed.
Well, I just want to clarify, we're not going after any permits right now. So,
Right, okay.
and when we're
So this-
farther along in design, we'll comply with what they need and go after it.
Perfect. Right, yes, no, I don't believe that I knew that you're not going for any permits now, but just where, where we're discussing, if we're talking about, if this environmental review is for the entire project, not just the parking lot, then we can't only respond to the permits, we can't move forward as if you're not going to be asking for permits. The permits you're asking for later have to be captured by this document because this is supposed to be
That's
the one and only thing. So I would like to add those things. Like if you are going to later during the design phase be getting DEC permits, and also we know that there's going to be a wall, a lime block wall near the shoreline or along the shoreline. I think those are things that we just have to have more information on before we can move forward. Not the determinations of them, but your plan for them, what they will be, a list of what those permits will be, I think.
You're
at this-
exactly right about
at this
that,
stage.
because you're doing the seeker for all of the actions involved in this, including any permits. You have to, it's not uncommon for applicants to consult with the permitting office in DEC long before they're going to submit a permit, just to get a feel for what is going to be required, if anything.
We did review several drawings during the PRC meeting that show the intended character of the shoreline for reference. Those have been slightly adjusted since PRC, and we can resubmit those. So those would replace the 11/16 date for the sections, for example, in the shoreline section. Those were in the email that we sent to staff earlier this week or last week regarding the railing.
Yes, thank you. Those updated drawings would be great. I think I just want to be clear that if you're requesting for us that the seeker involve the entire project, including the buildings and any required permits, that we might not be able to provide a neg deck until we've seen at least some movement on those, what those permits will be. So updated drawings would be great, and conversations that you might start early with DEC, just keeping us in the loop early on would be great. And Elizabeth says mentioned on page 7. Let's look at page 7. Do you want to specify where you're looking, Elizabeth?
In the second paragraph at the end, it says that the final drawings for the shoreline and trail recreation area are anticipated in 2022, which will be compliant with any necessary permits from New York DEC or Army Corps of Engineers.
Well, that is referenced. Does the board feel that that's enough, or would we like to see more detail about what some of those permits would be or drawings as they come? I'll leave that to the board discretion.
If I can continue speaking, I think those updated drawings would be nice, and maybe you can list the items that you foresee will require permits from DEC. Like, for example, that wall. I don't know what else you're going to be doing out there. There's a lot of vegetation. So if you're going to be clearing any of that vegetation, removing any of the rocks. Also, there's mention of a dredging project. Can you clarify that?
I think that question is probably directed towards the city. That would be under the city's purview, a dredging project.
Anybody who has the answer.
Where are you seeing this, Elizabeth?
Looks like it's on page 5.
On page 5.
It's referenced in the impacts on plants and animals.
Okay, because there was an environmental impact statement done for the dredging of Cascadilla Creek, and in that environmental impact statement, the area was characterized and evaluated for impacts to aquatic species.
Okay, so there's no future dredging project. This is the one from 2011.
Not for Cascadilla Creek, not for a long time for Cascadilla Creek. there will be dredging for the inlet, but it's not going to come to the, I don't think it will go to the farmer's market. And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no dredging. That reference is just so that you could, there they looked at the aquatic vegetation. So we're quoting what the aquatic vegetation looks like from that
I see,
study.
you're just referencing.
They did a really,
the
yeah,
materials.
yeah.
Uh-oh.
Because we didn't have other information on it.
Emily?
Thanks. So I'm thinking about these walls in terms of environmental impact. I think you're probably asking for the maximum amount and size of walls that you'd want. And I can only imagine that the Army Corps or DEC would require less. I know that Army Corps sometimes prefers riprap to a vertical ballasted wall like that. So I feel comfortable. Tell me if I'm wrong, Lisa or Nikki, but I think with the walls represented in the updated sections and on the site plan, I only could foresee that becoming less with a DEC review, not more. So I feel like if that's true, if I'm reading it right, then I think what's captured here is okay with me. I don't see that the impact would be getting greater as their permitting through DEC goes through.
Okay. Well, I'm getting the general sense from a couple of people that we feel that there's a proper check and balance in here. Mitch, see your hand up?
I was just wondering, not on that topic, but I'm just curious about two elements here. One is soils and, whether you might find anything while driving piles or digging. I don't know what the previous land use was before the original farmer's market on that site. And I'm not sure if it needs to be spelled out or if that's even an issue. And the other thing I'm curious about is the flooding. Since it's in this area that's between 100 and 500 year flood, I'm just wondering if that site has ever flooded and what building elements are proposed to be on the ground, and if there are any mechanicals or anything like that, that it might be flood impacted. So those are the two things on my mind.
I think you can respond to those things now, Kate, if you want to, or bring answers back later.
Trying to find where you are just in the report, but
I don't think I am anywhere.
Okay.
I didn't see the soil, so that was kind of out of left field, but the flooding one is on the bottom of page 4.
Okay.
And to the top of page 5, which explains that the SWIP has to be done. If you look at page 5 too, in the highlight.
Yeah, but I mean, beyond a SWIP, I'm just curious, like what the character and nature of the site has been and what's anticipated, and,
So the soils section of this will be much supplemented when we do get the geotechnical report back. That has been pretty significantly delayed in this project, and that's why the design for the parking area, for example, is taking considerably longer than we thought it would. So that will address the structure of the soil and its porosity, permeability, and I believe that where we left it, they were doing an investigation for permeability primarily in the parking area, and then deeper investigations for the building for future reference for the foundation planning. They may need to do additional borings when they're finalizing a foundation plan, but that will happen later.
Does that answer your question, Mitch, for now?
Oh, I didn't address the flooding yet, but I can tell you somewhat anecdotally that we have looked at historic photographs, and it appears, and this will be confirmed in the geotechnical report, that it appears that the site has been filled over time. It was once an island that was part of the creeks system, but has been filled with construction fill and other soils to become contiguous with the land as it is today. But as far as flooding goes, I'm not sure where that information is going to come from.
There would have to be building code, they have to be 1 foot above base flood elevation. The building is in the 500-year floodplain, so not as bad as the 100-year. And they would have to raise the floor up above, well, actually in the 500-year floodplain, you don't have to. It's already above it, so you don't have to do anything particular.
Okay. Any other questions around circulation of the parking lot? You've gotten some feedback that we're looking for more information around bicycle access. I think that would be helpful. I know that you've sent some pedestrian maps. Yes, Kate.
During the planning board meeting last month during design review, we submitted some pretty extensive circulation diagrams and showed the bike parking infrastructure and routing. So what we anticipate being able to provide at 60% set, for example, will be more detail of where the markings are, what color it will be, what the materials for the, we submitted some precedent images for the covered bike parking, but part of the reason that we added the bike lane in was in direct response to the public comment that we received, that the board received, and also other community conversations that we've had with other city agencies, just highlighting how important bike access is and the unique situation of the building on the waterfront trail.
Does anyone else need more time to review the part 3? Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring up, or do we feel complete with it for now? I see nod from Mitch that he seems good with it. CJ seems good with it. Emily's good. Okay. Elizabeth, I think got a chance to ask a question.
Will the
What's that?
geotech be ready for the next planning board meeting?
That was my question. I didn't want to ask it, Kate, but it was
No,
there.
it's okay to ask it. At this point, it might not be, but we're trying.
Okay, we'll just be in touch about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Okay.
as we know, that has many implications for the parking lot. And
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for your time tonight for the updates. We'll look forward to getting more information. Any last questions or thoughts from anyone with the farmers market team?
No, thanks for bearing with us. And, you know, we're excited. It looks like this thing is really going to happen, which is thrilling.
That's right.
We want to do it right and something that we can all be proud of. So thanks for your engagement. Have a wonderful holiday. I hope 2022 has, well, I hope this surge is the last one. I'll say that. I'd love to meet you all in person.
Someday.
I don't know
Yeah.
that the board knows about the grant award you just got.
Oh,
Yeah, we just got notification. We got, it was announced in Ithaca Voice. We got what we asked for, which was 3.8 mil, including matching funds from the market, which we have to raise. But that's got some design money for, I think, for the waterfront side, and then some construction money for the thing
Amazing.
you're looking at. We're going to bring it to life.
congratulations.
excellent.
That's really great.
Very exciting. Yeah. Well, yes, happy holidays to you as well. Thank you. And we look forward to continuing the conversation in the new year.
All right.
Great, thanks a lot. Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Thank you.
How's everybody doing? Should we continue powering through? We've only been at it for an hour. Keep going. All right. Thanks. Thanks for all of your engagement. We are a small but mighty group tonight. Hello to your team. I see Catherine and Arvind in the room. Let us know if we should be looking for other names to let in. We're a little bit ahead of schedule this evening. One thing I'd like to bring up to the board as the project team is getting ready to give us updates is that Lisa and Nikki sent an email with the College Town Design Guidelines. And I encourage, just before the meeting started, so I encourage all of us to have that open. And if you have questions about certain design elements or want to be able to compare to the standard, please feel free to engage with that document as a resource. And with that, I'll pass it over to, looks like maybe Arvind wants to take it away with the presentation on screen.
Good evening, everybody. I think that, first of all, I was just going to mention that.
Are you guys getting a lot of feedback?
Yes.
Yeah, we're getting like a secondary tape
If you
running in the
guys,
back.
if you have your YouTube stream open, please find that window and mute it.
Ah, I think you're right.
We're not hearing any feedback. It would make sense if it was you because you have headphones in.
I am corrected. Thank you.
All right, Catherine, please.
So, yes, I just wanted to point out that the way we are going to approach the design guidelines is that this evening we'll focus on the architecture, and we'll get through as much of that as we can. We're going to start with Catherine North. We thought we'd review that and then have discussion. If there's time, we can continue on to Catherine South. Otherwise, we'll pick up with that when we come back for the special meeting in January, which is scheduled for January 13th, I believe. And then in addition, so this package doesn't address the site component at all. And so we are going to be submitting an additional package prior to the January meeting that will be specifically focused on the design review of the site components. So that will be coming. And
wonderful.
That in January.
Thank you.
And I think with that, since this is about architecture, we'll let Arvind run the show here today.
Thank you, Catherine. I think, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So good evening, everyone. My thought was really to just peripherally touch on the site and then get into the building design. And as Catherine stated, we'll be getting into the actual site design at the next meeting. And I'm sure there's plenty of there for discussion as well as a review. The Catherine North and South site plans are they're really based on the College Town design guidelines, and they're applied throughout both of those sites. Our design provides high density along College Avenue, with higher density in the middle of the block and lower in the transitional zones, which are abutting the residences. We minimized long, continuous, opaque walls along College Avenue, as well as the cross streets. And we have promoted pedestrian-friendly street life with trees, generous walks, and street amenities. Majority of the dense development is in the College Town core designation, and there is some minor development in the residential transition zones, which consists of buildings being set back from the street and with the greatest emphasis on landscaping along the street edge. On Catherine North, Building 1 has 3 main entry points on College Avenue, and they're accessed by a covered paved public plaza that's created by cutting the face back of the building along the public way and recessing the entrance. The existing topography has had a major positive impact on the site and the building design by promoting multiple buildings in lieu of one monolithic building. And building 2A as well as 2B, their entrances are off of Catherine Street via sidewalks and paved courts. These buildings, 2A and 2B, can also be accessed internally by a bridge, or they can be accessed through an internal court, which is accessed off of Building 1. Just so everybody's aware of that, on every one of these slides, there's a little key plan on the slide, which shows where this elevation is taken. We thought it'd be helpful so as we go through this, so you can locate yourselves. The following is an overall street elevation of Catherine North and Catherine South on College Avenue. The project site, as I stated briefly before, provides an opportunity to create an integrated active street environment, and the sloping 40-foot drop from the intersection of Dryden to Cook provides an opportunity to step the massing as well as the roof lines down south on College Avenue. Our design also addresses the existing context on the 400 block and College Avenue by designing the buildings as three-part articulations. There's a base that is lifted up, and it houses a glass enclosed commercial program to activate the street environment, a middle, which aligns with the adjacent buildings in height and setback, and a top that addresses the adjacent buildings by architectural alignments as well as elements. Let me go. Okay. This is a view of Catherine North Building 1. And in order to reduce the mass and the scale of Building 1, we articulated the facade and massing by creating a two-story grid pattern with panels set in different planes, material changes, and well as proportionally sized materials in a variety of colors. We also implied upper floor setbacks with a staggered roof, and we also have staggered windows that protrude from the wall surface to create shadow and movement. A continuous glazed vertical element breaks the horizontal mass, and the street level is activated by a glass enclosed commercial space. The enhanced public environment on College Avenue really is covered with an overhang, so it can be utilized year-round for socializing as well as your everyday impromptu events. Predominantly, the exterior materials consist of terracotta tiles, which are 12 by 8 in a horizontal dimension, standing seam metal panels of various colors, and insulated glassing. The following view is the south end of Building 1 on Catherine Street, and you're looking north. Building 1 along College Avenue turns to the west on Catherine Street with its urban scale as well as its architectural language. The two-story grid pattern, it has shifted. It is much more tighter than what was seen on the east face, as you are because of the proportionality of that end. The vertical windows are still staggered. The scale is still minimized on the building, and a continuous glaze element is also introduced so we can break up the horizontal mass, but it also provides as a great connector on the inside, for it is part of the corridor and circulation. The street level down at the lower level is still activated by a glass enclosed commercial space, which has cascading oversized steps for public use. So a person can either climb on it or actually sit on it on a daily use. And a covered plaza, again, for the various activities in an urban environment. This is the following view, which is the west facade of Building 1. As I've spoken before, the east and south facades really reflect College Avenue's urban context of massing, materials, and colors, while the west facade reflects the residential context. Our design addresses the residential side through materiality and scale. The window sizes and alignments are regularized. It's much more vernacular in its alignment, while the standing seam panels are the ones that are staggered to minimize the overall scale and promote a visual activation of the facade. The combination of these regularized windows, they're all set back, and the seams of the metal panel, they activate the facade throughout the day because of the movement of the sun. As the day changes, as the sun moves, you're going to get different shadows because of these different planes. And we think that would create a very interesting facade throughout the day. We're using different colors on the back of the facade is to further minimize the scale of the building, again, to vertically break it up into different proportions rather than having one large monolithic mass. The following is the north facade of Building 1. This is the one looking uphill, And the north facade is really hidden by 312 College Avenue. As you can see in the dotted line here, that's really the profile of the building as its sisters next to Building 1. The remaining facade is going to be clad with terracotta tiles and vertically stacked windows. Majority of this facade really, as you're on College Avenue, will be obscured because of the oblique and descending view and the height and the depth of 312 College Avenue. Buildings 2A and 2B on Catherine Street are in a CR4 zone, and they're designed as per zoning, which is a height of 45 feet and 4 floors. Catherine Street drops approximately about 28 feet from College Avenue to the western point of our site. And the proposed buildings take advantage of this by integrating the massing with the existing slope. The buildings on Catherine Street are designed to complement the residential environment. Therefore, the buildings are separated to eliminate a wall-like effect. And we're also introducing connectors from building 1 to building 2A, a connector from building 2A to 2B. So basically, we create these zones in order to break up the building, give view angles, as well as provide connectivity within the complex itself. On the south side of it, we're introducing a different terracotta color. On the east side of the buildings, you were seeing more of the grays and the reddish orange. On this side, we're thinking about a greenish type of a terracotta in order to, quote, make there a variety within this urban environment and introduce a different kind of a color. These are 2 sectional cuts along Catherine Street, and they are along building 2A. Section 1 is cut along the entry stoop, while section 2 is cut along the light well. The face of the buildings in both of these sections is 15 feet from the street curb, and it includes a 5-foot sidewalk as well as the 10-foot setback from the property line. The setback area is landscape with softscape at either the entry stoop locations or with the appropriate hardscape at the light well locations. The 10-foot setback also provides an opportunity to expand the sidewalk at the light well, benefiting the public pedestrians, also at the same time providing light to the lower level apartments within the complex itself. So if you're walking on Catherine Street, your 5-foot sidewalk is actually going to feel more like 8'6" because that's really the edge of your light well. And the same thing is going to happen when you're along the entry steps. You're basically walking on a 5-foot sidewalk, but the entry court adds another 3.5 feet to that dimension. The following example of the entry stoop and the light well condition is really, they exist at 238 Linden as well as 119, 125 College Avenue. The sloping conditions of both of those sites dictated whether we have an on-grade entry or a stepped entry or an entry that is carved out to provide access on light. And that's pretty much the same way we're going to be treating the buildings on Catherine Street. We're going to let the topographical conditions create a rich and diverse street environment. The following are the view is the north and west facade of building 2A. Similar as to the west facing residential facade of building 1, our design addresses the residential context, but with several important minor architectural adjustments. And those adjustments are really based on the scale and the massing of these buildings. As you can, I hope you remember, the original metal panels were based on a 2-story grade. The standing seam metal panel here is reduced to a 1-story in scale due to the 4-story massing of building 2A and 2B. And the west facade, we have also incorporated an accent element to create visual movements. The ends of the connectors, which link building 2A and 2B, are glazed and transparent, and they actually help to break up the mass. And again, they're connected to internal corridors, so they become a place of remembrance as to not only where am I, but also to bring light in to the heart of the building itself. The following is the view, the south facade on Catherine Street and east facade with the interior courtyard of building 2B. So what we have, I'm circling right now, is on Catherine Street, and this is the face of building 2B. And then what you see inside this east elevation really is what you would be looking at if you were within the courtyard. The building 2B is the farthest building on the west and is designed to be proportional to our existing residential neighbor, which is approximately about 22 feet to the west of our building. The mass of building 2B and our neighbors is very similar in height as well as in width. Building 2B has many similarities to 2A in its materials and architectural elements, as well as the design details. Again, there are vertical glazed elements that are embedded in these in order to signify either an entrance or also a break of the massing of the facade itself. The following is the north and west elevation of building 2B. Again, we're looking more at the interior of this block, and you're looking at the north elevation as well as the west elevation. And in these following elevations, the windows and the standing seam metal panels are staggered again because we want to minimize the scale and promote visual movement, while the scale of the windows is residential in order to be appropriate to our western neighbors. We're using different colors again in order to break up the mass of the building itself. And we're also providing vertical elements, as we had done previously, in order to activate the facade of these buildings. All of the breaks that we occur in the buildings that break up the mass also help to bring light into the depth of the building. I'm going to concentrate on the Catherine North before we go to the Catherine South, but on the Catherine North, the following is a partial view at the glazed vertical element on building 1 and the different colors that enhance the two-story grid pattern. The undulating pattern of the opaque terracotta panels provides a relief against the voids, which are infilled with either large windows and standing seam metal panels. Large double-story windows at building 1, which are along College Avenue and Catherine Street, have built up projected frames extending beyond the face of the terracotta and adjacent standing seam metal panels. The thought really is that there are many planes in this wall. You have the plane of the terracotta, you have the plane of the voids, you have planes that are within the voids, which is the glass and the metal panels, and then the frames of the windows actually project from the terracotta to create another layer of activity. The facade itself overall is also activated by alternating the windows, which are also set in a different plane within the terracotta wall to all help the fact that you do not want, and we're trying to avoid, a monolithic static facade. As you get closer to the views, you have a further understanding of the texture of this terracotta, and I'm going to try to see if I can bring that forward. So this is not a homogeneous material itself. I'm hoping some of you can see that, that there is a texture to it. There is an articulation of the voids infilled by the storefront windows and the standing seam panels. The impact of the vertical glazed element also helps to break up the horizontal mass. And finally, at the street level, we have the expansion of the street plane by lifting the ground floor off the street level itself. Oops. Let me zoom out a little bit. We've done a careful investigation and a careful study of what are the appropriate materials for this site. And we've selected a material palette which is durable and can be sustainable within the Ithaca climate. And here are some of the main predominant materials for this project. The terracotta tiles that we have looked at are, and we have selected several colors. They are textural, they're rich, and they will create a dynamic facade. And especially one of the facades that you can see here is that even these terracottas, there is not a homogeneous color to them. there's actually a richness that goes beyond the color itself, and there's a depth to those colors. The painted standing seams, metal panels that we're using, they have a distinct profile to them. And the profile is going to help us because they're going to create some distinct shadow lines. And those shadow lines will be ever changing due to the movement of the suns. And finally, we're looking at the infill of the voids with the glazing in the metal panels. And we think the combination of the different planes will help us to create a tremendously rich facade that will be very appropriate for College Avenue. Would you like me to move forward with Catherine South, or would you like me, or are there questions or anything we want to discuss about Catherine North?
You know, I also just wanted to add that we are working on getting actual physical samples of these materials into City Hall, and we will have those there sometime in the very near future, so that you'll have time to stop by City Hall and look at them before the special meeting on January 13th, for those of you who want to see the actual real samples. So I just wanted to mention that. And so, yes, I think, so this was sort of the discussion on Catherine North. And so the question is, you know, would you like to have discussion on that now, or would you like Arvind to continue to Catherine South?
I'm going to suggest that you continue on to Catherine South, but that if you can speed it up a little bit, because even though we started ahead of schedule, we've spent a good bit of time on the presentation, and I want to leave lots of time for feedback and questions. So I think we have the general context. Yeah, please go ahead and continue, and then we'll do a round of questions and feedback then. So thank you.
Sure, sounds great. Well, on the Catherine South side, building 3A and 3B have two major entry points. One is on the north end, and the other one is on the south end. The entries are accessed off of College Avenue via a covered paved public plaza. And again, that is created by cutting back the building footprint along the public way and recessing the entries into the setback. In addition to those two major entries on College Avenue, there are a number of private row house entrances with recessed doors and sidelights with painted steel stoops and canopies along College Avenue to enter those private residences. And also the entry to building 4 has an entry off of a porch, which is off of Cook Street, as well as a second entry, which is off an internal pathway. The front stoop entrances that are along the College Avenue on building 3A and 3B, they are such an important element of College Avenue, for they will create that everyday activity of people entering their residences, people leaving their entrances as they move through their daily life. Building 3A and 3B and 4, the trash and recycling are located within the building footprint and an enclosed outdoor space, which is not visible from Cook Street. These collection points are accessed by service vehicles from either Catherine or from Cook Street. The following again is an overall street elevation of Catherine North as well as Catherine South on College Avenue, and overall street elevation also of Catherine Street as the end of building 3A to the north face, and as well as the elevation of Cook Street. Again, the existing topography, as I said before, has impacted both of these sites, and they're very important in a positive way because they give us the ability to break the building mass along the sloping topography. Again, in both of these sites, we have addressed a number of the College Town design guidelines through scale, context, and by creating the friendly pedestrian street environments that is so integral to the project as well as to the design of this project. The Catherine South elevation along College Avenue continues the two-story grid pattern, which was part of the concept of Catherine North, but the scale is further minimized by increasing the ratio of glass to terracotta, as therefore making the buildings much more transparent and less monolithic. At the south end of building 3B, the grid pattern actually even has been further minimized to a grid frame with an infill of glass and metal panels. And the building steps down, as I stated numerous times before, because of the topography itself. The materials of these buildings are similar to Catherine North, but the proportions and color vary to promote the diversity in the urban environment. Here, we're thinking more of the grays and greens as well, because it's further away from the 400 block, and the 400 block had more of the oranges and the reds, and therefore that's the color palette we were continuing with on Catherine North. The design of Catherine South really shifts the entire, what I call the center of gravity, further down College Avenue by creating the public plaza, not only on the north end, and also providing the row houses entrances along College Avenue. But also on the south end, we have incorporated a public plaza for socializing. And it's also a sheltered place for a place to be bored or to be dropped off by a bus, and a place of destination. At the south end, there is a fitness center for the community, for the users. As we showed on Catherine Street, the face of building 2A and 2B and how the front stoops and the light wells work together. The following site plan really shows the relationship of the front stoops and sidewalk conditions along Catherine South. Section 1 is at the bus location. Section 2 is at the typical expanded sidewalk along College Avenue. The reason why the Section 1 was important was because when you carve out the bus location, it narrows the sidewalk width at that point, and we wanted to give you a full understanding of both of those conditions. So at the bus stop condition, what you have is the sidewalk width is approximately 11'4" to the face of the building. And then it's 18'6" in the typical expanded sidewalk condition. Now, within that sidewalk condition, we do have our quote 5-foot setback from our property line, and that's the face of our building. And within that also, we have the front stoops. Now, we're showing you two different versions of a front stoop here because as I stated before, the topography dictates the length of the stair runs. It dictates whether it's an on-grade entry or it's at the worst situation, which it needs the full height run. And so at one location where we're showing it, the headroom from the sidewalk to the top of the landing is 7'8", and we do have a protection. There are many ways to create that protection. You can create it by railings, or you can create it by change in the plane of the walking surface. And we chose to do this via the change of the walking surface because it gives us the most clear opacity to the back of the building wall. So in order to perception-wise make the sidewalks as large as possible. Obviously, when you're at a 4-foot dimension, it's a different kind of a headroom condition. And again, you can use the same raised grade of several inches in order to mitigate the ability for somebody to bang their head onto the stoop itself. The following is a view of Cook Street, and at this you're looking in north. Building 3B is along College Avenue. It turns west on Cook Street and continues the light structural grid with an infill of metal panel and glass. The plaza and the lower level are further integrated into the streetscape at this location, and the glazed lower level, which activates the street through its public use and activities within the fitness center. Building 4 on Cook Street is in the CR3 zone and is designed as per zoning. It has a height of 35 feet and 3.5 floors. Building 4 is also the farthest west building, and it's approximately about 11.5 feet away from our nearest neighbor on the west. The building itself is stylistically vernacular in its form and scale, and in keeping with its adjacent neighbors. We reduced the overall volume by introducing a grid pattern horizontally and vertically, and also through modern details. We want to tell a story about its time, but keep its form and scale in complementary to its neighbors. Building 3A and 3B's the western facades, the back facades, are designed also to carry the delicate grid pattern with windows and colored metal panels. Single and double height window openings are arranged and aligned to create a rhythm and a continuity. While the metal panel sizes, we've broken those down to be an abstract connection to the residential size and scale of our western neighbors. Again, we're using certain themes such as the regularized windows in order to complement our neighbors, but they're set back in order to activate the facade throughout the day, again, based on the movement of the sun. The grid colors and the width of the grid, they help us in order to promote a variety and also break down the horizontal facade. So reality is, when you're looking at this, you're seeing sections and portions. You're not seeing one large horizontal mass. The grid in the quote starting from the north works itself up to a more dense grid in the middle, which breaks up the horizontal mass of our building 3A. And then we change colors with the same language, but with different colors to identify building 3B. The following is a view of building 3A. This is the quote building as it turns on Catherine, and you're looking south. Building 3A along College Avenue turns to the west. It still continues its much more transparent two-story grid pattern, which is again set in different undulating planes and stacked vertical windows. At the top of the corners, we designed it as a void with an infill in order to break up the mass at the top of the two-story corners. And at the bottom of it, we have an open plaza, which activates the street through its public use. So think of this building as sitting on the corner. The top is eroded, the bottom is eroded, then you have a mass of a building. It's all done in order to minimize the scale as you turn that corner of Catherine, whether you're going south or north on College Avenue. Building 4 on Cook Street is, as I stated before, in a CR3, and it's designed as per zoning. Building 4 on Cook Street is designed to integrate with its residential environment. Therefore, the form, its sloping roof, its dormers, they're all in the keeping of the language of a vernacular neighborhood. On the south and north elevations, though, we introduced a horizontal and vertical grid to, again, de-emphasize the mass of it. Because the majority of the buildings on Cook Street are proportionally less than the width of these buildings. And what we wanted to do was integrate this with the smaller residential scale, and therefore we introduced a different proportion on these buildings by the grid itself. On Catherine South, which is a partial view that we're showing, is the juncture between 3A and 3B. I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit. I'm hoping I can. I don't have many more slides, so bear with me. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. This close-up really gives you a better understanding of the texture of the terracotta tiles, the articulation, and I think I've said this before, of the voids, as to how you integrate the storefront windows and the standing seam panels. We've also introduced in here a red accent element, which again creates another layer of activity within the facade itself. And finally, the smooth metal panel grid system and the street level expansion of the street plane provides a great area for public use. It also provides a great place for socialization. It kind of integrates the building with that urban environment. just going to the last slide. And I think we've all seen this slide here before. And the goal of this slide to really say is the materiality of this entire project is of rich, durable materials that can withstand the climate up at Ithaca. But we're using it in different ways. We're using different colors. So overall, it looks like an urban context that is fully diverse and feels a richness to it that will be there for a very long time in the context of all the other buildings. That's pretty much the quickest run that I can go through. I'm sorry if it was, it's pretty, there's a lot more details that we can get into, but at this point, I think I'm going to stop and see if you have questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, this is the time for design reviews, so we definitely want to be looking at things closely. I'll move it to the board we'll take a round, and I'll start with who I see first. CJ.
Thank you very much for these updates. I don't have a lot to add at this time. Thanks.
Emily?
Was that me? Sorry, Emily?
Yes, Emily.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, these are really exciting to see. I feel like I understand the building so much better after your presentation. I do have a bunch of questions and comments. I think the light wells, to me, this is the first time I really understood them, and I like them a lot. I think they add to that row house kind of feeling, and they give you the opportunity to let students enter into the building with maybe a smaller group of people rather than a main entrance and a big lobby where they're going up. So I really like that use of these light wells. Okay, a question on the north presentation. Can you elaborate on your idea of connecting these three buildings with bridges? And I have two reasons for asking that. Connecting big building 1 to 2A and 2B through the overhead bridges. My first reason for asking that question is it feels like it kind of erodes that row house feeling on the inside if everyone has access through the buildings. Maybe it's for amenities in building 1. And my second reason for asking that question is it seems like a possible security problem. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on those connections.
The connections really are for convenience, meaning as we know, there's not always the best weather in Ithaca. And so people can easily navigate to the buildings 2A and 2B during inclement weather by entering building 1 right off of College Avenue and have a protected access to their residences all the way to the north end of building 2B if they wanted to. In good weather terms, you can always walk easily down College Avenue, turn to the west on Catherine and access building either 2A and 2B. We didn't want to preclude anything as convenience and also as in service. You're absolutely right. Also, we do have the daily life things such as trash and everything to be taken care of. So people have to be able to take their garbage, whether they're transversing outside or inside. They can go, for example, if you did not want to go outside in bad weather from building 2A, you can go to the trash location all internally and dump off your garbage itself. But we did not also want to create bridges that were, quote, actual enclosures. The reason for that was we take the residential nature as you go to the west as a very important element. And we're trying to fit our buildings so they are as complementary towards the west. So we wanted to break these buildings up. And we thought, how do we want to break them up? We could have, quote, had it a glazed enclosure, for example. And I think, Emily, you saw that a long time ago. And, and you were absolutely right. When we were looking at that, it didn't feel right because it didn't create the break as strong as it should be. And so what we looked at was, okay, why not start thinking of the quote bridges as ease of access, but they're open, and they're open more like large screens and gates to a courtyard. So, this is something that we're going to look at further, but we're trying to keep that connector as transparent as possible. So when you look at these buildings, we want you to see 3 buildings, and then we want to see row houses. So that's our goal with the bridges itself, is to see how much further through not only materiality, but also through color, how can we fade those out even to a greater level?
I would just add that, a similar technique is used at Collegetown Terrace. There are bridges between some of the buildings. And just to your point, Emily, about security issues, there have not been problems there where they have this same kind of arrangement.
Great, thank you. My last question is for the South presentation, maybe a plan.
Sure.
I'm curious about the street connection between 3A and 3B, if there is one. And I was looking on your floor plan that shows the first floor interior. I don't know what page it is, but it shows the 3 buildings all together. So between 3A and 3B, there's a very small, very small white connection. And since this is a ground level, I'm imagining that that's not an easy pass through. I wonder if it should be.
There is a connectivity. If you look at, I know we're showing an entry point here. If you can follow my cursor, there is this quote yellowish corridor, but this yellowish corridor, if you follow through, runs all the way up.
And how about exiting to the west, right there? Because if
here,
can you? Is that an easy connection? No.
There is a stair here which lets you out because of the grade. You are dropping down and then working your way up, but there is no real formal entry into the suites through that area. That's more of an exit.
I see. So there's a big grade difference between College Ave and the west side. Yes. So, and it's more of a fire egress exit.
Right, that stair will go down and let you out because there's no other there's no lobby or anything like that to let you out to at that point.
Okay, I'm sure we'll look at lighting and things. It seems like of all the beautiful spaces, this is the only one that jumps out to me as potentially a dark place to hide. So that's the reason I asked. But thank you.
Understood. And yes, there's an entire, Catherine, I think I'm speaking for you, but there's a lighting piece that will be part of the conversation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for those questions, Emily. Elizabeth, thoughts or questions?
Thanks for that presentation, Arvind. It was very, very interesting to know your thoughts around the pattern and how the facades were designed. My question has to do, I know this is an architectural presentation, but it has to do with whether you're going to have rooftop units and penthouses, or if your mechanical rooms are all housed within the floor plan of the buildings.
We're going to, we do have mechanical spaces within the buildings, and we're going to have rooftops, but the mechanical units will be housed within those enclosures. Those enclosures will be in the middle of the building, and you have there are height limits to that, and so therefore, in our opinion, after we enclose those units, you're not going to see those from College Avenue. You're not going to see them from Cook Street. You're not going to see those from Catherine Street. They'll be in the middle of the building, and they're limited because of the systems that we have here. These are not large. I know what you're thinking about, those large air handling, what I'll call almost train cars. That's not what we have on these projects. These are individual units for the residences, and we have limited requirement for that on the roof.
Great, it's good to hear that you thought about that. Otherwise, that's all I have for today.
Thank you for that. Mitch?
Thanks. This is really exciting project and development, and I've supported it the whole way, and I continue to support it. I think it's really coming along nicely. I have a bunch of comments. I'll just run through them. Don't have to answer them tonight. There's quite a few because there's a lot going on here, right? These are really rich, complex buildings to kind of take in, and I feel like we need a little more time, but that's fine. So I would say overall that I'm really glad that you're using terracotta, primarily as the primary material on these buildings, and you're not using metal panel or ephes, God forbid. And so, I think that's right for a college town. I think it deserves a stone type material. And I hope that, when these things go up or we see mock-ups, that it has a substantial feeling to it, the terracotta, that it doesn't come across as thin veneer, but it the detailing of it is such that it's, has a weight to it. I'm curious to know where the diamond shaped pattern is. You don't have to answer that right now, but I didn't really understand where you were proposing that kind of patterning. In terms of the colors, there's a lot of colors here. And I'm not a color theorist. I have no idea kind of combinations of colors, but I know that there's a whole field of this, and it's going to be a very colorful project. And so, some of the yellows and bright greens really stand out to me as being, very bold. And I don't know if that's right. It was unexpected, I think. So I feel like if there's information or case studies or precedents that you have that reflect this kind of multi-dimensional, multicolored complex of buildings, I think that would be helpful to kind of understand it in its whole kind of design composition. For instance, building 3A on the south, the front is gray and olive, and the back is yellow, and the two facades are like completely different. It looks like a different building from front to back, which may or may not be a good thing. With Catherine South, I had a question about the painted steel stoops and wondering whether garbage and other kinds of things would go underneath those and be kind of a maintenance problem over time, and wondering whether those could be more of a solid stoop, a warmer type of entry and exit on that side of the building. That's College Ave. That seems to be really important. The steel stoops felt a little bit cold to me. Catherine North, I agreed with Emily about the sky bridges. I question those. I don't know why we need sky bridges to connect these buildings. To me, it implies more of a dormitory style development as opposed to individual buildings. If that's what you're trying to promote, is 3 individual buildings with spaces between, I think that makes more sense not to have those bridges. So you're saying that you're trying to make them disappear with materiality, but I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are about just removing those altogether. The ground floor of all buildings, I ask you to make those transparent and transparent and transparent, okay? So that we can see through, like you did at the Brazano Center, and see the activity and the life of each ground floor of every building. I feel like that's really, really important. And the last comment I had struck me, the west facade of building 2A and the north facade of building 1 in Catherine North. North facade of building 1 looks very monolithic, and I know it's hidden behind the building that's next to it, but I guess I'd like to see that from a street perspective and really what that would feel like. It's a very blank, dark facade on that side, which faces kind of the main intersection of College Town. Yeah, that one, yeah. And then the west facade of 2A, and I think there was another facade back there.
I'm sorry.
This is my last comment, Kevin. This is my last comment. My last comment is the narrowness of the windows of the west facade of 2A, and I think there was another facade. They seem like almost non-existent, and I don't know what the quality of the interior space is going to feel like with windows that narrow. There was another facade that it was like just barely slits, and I didn't really understand why those were becoming more opaque. I'll stop there.
No, we could address all these. So it's good to have your comments. I think you're going to put them down, or I think Catherine has them, and we'll address them. The narrow slits that were really, I'm going to just quickly hit a couple of them and then we can move off. The diamond shape is really on building 4 only, and they're only on the long side. And they were purposely proposed for those sides because the scale of them is residential, and those are the long sides of that building. And we wanted to break the scale down of that building, just as the grid is doing that on the quote north and south side. As far as the front stoops are concerned, we're trying to always treat those stoops as not part of the building. Our goal is that those stoops should make that entire environment from the face of the building to the sidewalk, whether it's in the narrow part, which is the bus stop, or in the widest part, which is the expanded part, feel like part of, quote, a light material. We can always look at colors, we can look at different things. That's why we went away from actually having a base to those stoops and having a closure and all that. But we can look at the different ways. The north facade of building 1, and I think this is something we might have to show you a different view. This is an elevation that you will never see. And what I mean by that is this is a drawing, but in reality, think of it as you're walking on College Avenue and you have 312 that's sisters next to this. The back end of this building, which is the right-hand side in your view, is not going to be part of any dialogue. It's going to be the part that you will never see between the layers of the buildings as you are on College Avenue. I think we can cut a view of that as to, if you're on the street, what exactly are we seeing at that point? And we'll love to share that with you at that point. I know there's a bunch of other things that you brought forward that we will take a look at. We have reasoning for it. We might need to relook at some of the reasoning. The bridge part is something that I think is important to remember, that at the end of the day, there are people who will, quote, live in these buildings and will need the day-to-day services in order to keep an active building. Place has to be cleaned. Place has to basically have garbage taken out. It's going to have people who are going to want to get to it in, as I said, in bad weather. So there's reasons for it. There's reasons for why that connectivity actually is a good thing, because it kind of facilitates the guy being on the farthest end being able to come to a friend's place much easier. So there are layers as to reasons as to why we think that it's important to have that, but also design it well so it gives us both that function as well as the, quote, design aspirations that we want to achieve out of it.
Okay. I'll just share some final thoughts, I guess, and then see if we feel ready to move on. Yes, I was curious about material samples. I would love to see them. Thank you for coordinating getting physical things to City Hall. These perspectives were really helpful. Thanks for the presentation. It's nice to be able to see each building from, the way that they tie together, and to continue it further to what you were alluding to, street views of some of these, intersection points. The human scale perspective views are going to be really helpful. I know that you'll be working on those. Relating to Mitch's comment around color, I can imagine that they are intended to translate to various uses. And so if that's the reasoning, with having multiple colors within the palette, I'm a fan of them. I think as long as you say, like, kind of translates to whatever vernacular style you're evoking. And I'll also +1 the comment around activated uses on the ground floor. So that being said, this is just a design review. I think you've gotten good feedback. Catherine, I want to make sure that you had a chance to respond to anything tonight. Otherwise, we're happy to review updated materials when you get to it.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your feedback too, Arvind, and I guess we'll probably plan on seeing you in January. I would imagine. Awesome. Well, hopefully you're taking away positive feedback around the direction. They're seeming very very handsome in my mind. So
And
Thank
so
you.
I will just confirm, so we have a special meeting on January 13th, I believe.
yes, I believe so as well.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm up for the next project. Do I just stay in here?
You can just stay.
Bye, Catherine.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, Catherine.
Are you expecting anyone else, Catherine, to join you tonight?
I am. I am expecting, I have a couple of architects who should be joining.
I've let them in. They're in.
Good. Oh, let's see, I guess I need to pull up the presentation.
Well, I think we're ready for you to take it away
So
whenever you are.
So I need to share my screen, is that right? If I want to put up the presentation?
That would be the best way to do it, yes.
Screen mode. Okay, and how come I can't see it? Let's see here. Let me try that again. I don't know why that's blank.
You have, I just want to say, as you're setting up, you haven't had a sketch plan in a while. Because we first stopped doing them during COVID, but this was a light meeting, so we have, just to remind you, that's just to give feedback to the applicant before they actually submit their site plan review application. So that's the difference.
Sorry, I just need to pull this up again. For some reason, this is like blank. I don't know what's going on here. Why is that? How can that be?
Is this something that has been sent to staff already that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Catherine, I can share, Catherine, if you want, and you can just move me along.
Great. I don't know what happened.
It's
I have a
okay.
slide and then I don't understand. Anyway. Okay, that was great. So
Is this
I should
good?
stop sharing.
Yeah, I can move it along. Let me just maximize my screen. Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So this is a new project, 111 Valentine Place. And I have with me, so let me just introduce the team for this project. So we have two architects, Cotta Architects, Caroline O'Donnell, as well as Sean Daniels. TG Miller Engineers are providing engineering. And then we also have Ian Tyndall, Landscape and Urban Design from Washington, D.C., as well as Trowbridge Wolf Michaels Landscape Architects. And John Novar is here as the project developer. Next slide, please. So in summary, the project is 30 apartment units. And you know what? Actually, you know what? I think there were a couple of updates to this presentation. Sean, do you have the presentation?
I have it open.
Iris can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you pull it up, please? I think there's there's just a couple of small changes that we made that I think are actually significant. So it'd be best if you could do that, that'd be great, Iris. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She hasn't killed that plant yet.
Can you see my screen?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay. Yes, so here we go again. So summary of the project is there are 30 apartment units. There's a small ground floor leasing office for the project. And then we will be requesting 2 variances, which we'll get into and describe in greater detail later in the presentation. Next slide. Just to orient you, if Iris, perhaps you could point to East State Street. You're all familiar with East State Street, and then as one turns south down Valentine Place, the project is located on the east side at the sort of the end of Valentine Place. It is adjacent to the Collegetown Terrace apartment complex, of course. And as you'll see, we are conceiving of the development of the landscape around this new project as really an extension of the landscape, really quite robust landscaping that was installed at Collegetown Terrace will be extended to this project. Next slide. So this is just a survey of the existing conditions. We've colored the property of the site, and you can see that currently there's a double house here. This is student housing. This existing double house will be demolished. There is parking, and you can see this asphalt drive sort of really wraps the site today. All of this asphalt is going to be removed, and the proposal is to actually not build any parking on site. That's one of the variances we are requesting because the same developer owns the adjacent Collegetown Terrace apartments. The developer actually received permission from the planning board to utilize unused parking at Collegetown Terrace for their other properties. And so because it's immediately adjacent and there is excess capacity, they do not rent all the parking spaces at Collegetown Terrace. And so therefore it's quite convenient to be able to use that parking for this project. And the intention is to build no parking here. And in fact, so as a result, we will actually modestly increase the amount of green space with the new development. Next slide, please. So here is the proposed new development. The new building is actually sited closer to Valentine Place to give it more of a presence on the street. The existing building is set deep back into the site. There's an entrance plaza on the northern corner there at the front entrance to the building. And then down at the south end along the front, there's a service drive for loading and unloading. There's a dumpster there to give access to the dumpster. And then there's a stair that goes down to the basement. The rest of the site, as I mentioned, is really planted really extensively with a combination of evergreen trees and large deciduous trees and some smaller native flowering trees. And so I think in a short period of time, this will be really a very robust landscape. You can also, there's actually very few trees on the site today. There's a couple of large ones in front that sort of obscure the building from the street. But in general, there's very little landscaping on the site today. And those trees will be removed. There was no real landscape plan. Sort of ad hoc what's out there today, and they will be removed. You can see, however, that even at the back of the property, on the adjacent property, that the sort of grade vegetation there, there's extensive planting just beyond the property line, and that of course all stays. There will be a new retaining wall along the northern edge of the property. Currently, the building actually sits quite high, and so there's sort of extensive staircases that lead you up to the front of the building. So the building is actually being lowered to be this building will be more at the same elevation as the street. So it has a better sort of street front relationship. Also an accessible entrance, whereas today that doesn't actually exist on the building. And so because it's being lowered to be really at approximately the elevation of Valentine Place, we have a retaining wall along the northern edge. I would also just point out that actually just north of the site, there is a vacant lot between the property and the property just north of that. So there is a somewhat of an additional buffer there. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Caroline O'Donnell to speak about the architecture and the kind of the neighborhood context.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Yeah, I'm Caroline O'Donnell. I'm one of the architects on this incredible team. I work together with Iris Xiaoziu Ma, who is kindly sharing her screen with us. And you'll be introduced to the other architecture team member in a few slides. So let's start by having a little walk through the neighborhood. We'll start with, there's a legend on the top left for where the photos are taken. Photo 1 is on East State Street, and you can just see the cars coming out of the intersection. That's the intersection with Valentine Place. Photo 2 is right at that intersection on the north side of the street looking down Valentine Place. Number 3 is walking a little further down the street. We can still see the building on the corner of State Street. That's 915 East State Street. Image 4 is really pretty interesting. It's a long montage of all of the entire south side of the street. So all of the buildings currently on that street, two residential buildings. And you can see the site and the current buildings obscured there. Maybe Iris, you can put your hand there. Yeah, by the trees in the front, you can just make out the two buildings there. And on the right, of course, the beginning of the building from College Town Terrace that ends that kind of montage. Number 5 is the view from looking from the site directly outward. Those are buildings 106 and 112 College Town Terrace. Number 6 is the building that truncates the end of that street. So really the view as you get right to the bottom. And number 7 is just turning around the corner to see the continuation of the street around the corner. And right at the bottom is the street elevation. So containing all of the same information as the montage in number 4, but with the new building facade added in. So you can see, and we can go to the next slide, I think. The sawtooth parapet references the pitched roofs of the adjacent houses and articulates the roof line. The front facade contains modules of 3 different depths to create shadow lines that further articulate the facade. The cantilevered section on the left here that pulls out the facade separates the public from the private and provides additional privacy for the residents. There's a heart you can just make out on the top left corner to reference its location on Valentine Place. And at the bottom, you can see the facade kind of lifts up for a glazed opening, and that's the main entrance to the residential and the office components. So the offices, the leasing offices are in the base there and the glazed portion, and that's also the entrance for the residents. Next slide. The front facade material is perforated, corrugated gold metal, especially for Mitch. The perforations create a sense of glow and translucency, especially at night. These architectural features, along with the extensive landscaping that's been described by my colleague, constitute a design response that we hope is appropriate to and respectful of the existing context. So I'll pass it on to my collaborator, Sean Daniels, who will give us a little bit more in-depth analysis of that facade. Sean?
You're muted, Sean. We can't hear you. We can't hear you yet. It looks like you're muted on your phone based on the icon on your video.
not unmute my phone. All right. Apparently, I have to do it in 2 places, not just the phone. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I'm Sean Daniels. I am going to be reviewing the zoning portion of this project. The project is zoned R3A residential. As Catherine pointed out earlier, we're meeting all the requirements outlined in the district regulations chart, with the exception of 2 of them, which we'll be seeking variances for. The first variance is for column 4, which is off-street parking. The ordinance requires 1 parking space per unit up to 3 beds, and then 2 spaces for each 4-bed unit. This would make the parking requirement for our project 34 spaces. The parking requirement for Collegetown Terrace Apartments, the adjacent complex owned by the same owner, has approximately 650 spaces. On a yearly basis, approximately half of these spaces are leased. The developer has previously made arrangements with the city and planning board to allow tenants of other properties they own at college to park at Collegetown Terrace, and they intend, excuse me, to provide the same opportunities as the tenants of this project. In addition, the developer provides a regular shuttle between Collegetown Terrace, Cornell campus, and Wegmans, and the intention is to use this shuttle for 111 Valentine Place tenants as well. The second variance we'll be seeking is for column 6 minimum lot size. The calculation in the zoning ordinance allows for 17 apartment units for the property based on lot square footage. And that's units, not lot coverage, that we're talking about, the number of units in terms of minimum lot size. The plans we are proposing include 30 units. The discrepancy is not one of building square footage or bedrooms, but of how the space is divided into apartments. Early on, there was an alternate layout that we considered, which included 15 units with 3 and 4 bedroom unit mix, which meets this zoning requirement. Ironically, this alternate layout includes 4 more beds than our proposal in the same building with the same square footage. The developer's primary reason for the desire to provide smaller units is studio apartments tend to attract more serious students who are less likely to be interested in large social gatherings. In addition, in the age of COVID that we're all living in, living alone or in smaller groups with 1 bathroom per bedroom has become a lot more attractive for students and their parents. That's the reasoning for our 2 variances. And now Catherine will discuss our proposed approval schedule. Catherine? You're muted, Catherine. Your turn.
Sorry about that. Yes, so in conclusion, just to sort of give you an overview of how we are anticipating the schedule. So we are planning in January to submit our formal site plan review application. And then we would anticipate in February, we would be presenting that to the planning board. March would then be declaring lead agency. April, public hearing. We're hoping for a neg deck and BZA recommendation in about June. Go to the public or go to the BZA in July, and then hope that we could get preliminary and final approval at the end of July. So that is our overview at this point of the approval schedule. So I think we're looking for a pre-application meeting in early January, and then hope to just really hit the whole process hard.
Great, thank you. We can maybe speak to the schedule a little bit at the end with staff. I'll send it around to each member of the board to provide their feedback. And before that, I'll just say that this is a really interesting building. It seems like something that is both, unique and contextual. I like that aspect of it. We'll be really curious. I'll be curious to see things like bike parking, if it's covered, where it is externally, how people move in and out of the building. Of course, you're familiar with all of these requirements. As far as the variances go on the parking, you mentioned how many parking spaces are leased. We'll probably just, need to have for our environmental review some kind of table about your expected ins and outs of people and in the building and also in the parking lot. I think we're generally in favor of off-street parking variances, but as much as you can get ahead of providing text and narrative for the environmental would be helpful. That being said, let's get some other feedback from the board, and then, we'll look forward to hopefully moving along on the schedule as proposed without any, given that there aren't any snags or anything. But let me start with Emily.
Sure, thank you. It's fun to do a kind of early design review again. I'm supportive of your variance for no parking. I think it's really clever to, use the other site and add more green space. That seems like a win. And I really like the depth of facade and the materiality that you're using. I hope that same high quality material would be used, not necessarily the same exact, but a similar high quality material around the other facades of the building.
Actually, Iris, could you maybe flip to either the facade or the site plan, just depending on what the comments are about? Thanks.
Sure, thank you. I think this sawtooth idea at the roofline is really interesting. It looks like it's a facade treatment, a thick facade. I think it could be interesting to explore this as a functional aspect of the building, as a light well or, whatever functional quality you could have for that top level. And I think it does have the intellectual connection to the vernacular houses on the street, but I'm not sure that it goes beyond that. I don't think on a day-to-day we're going to really connect it to the other buildings, but I appreciate the thoughtfulness of it. I like the building. I think it fits on the street. There's a lot of colorful palettes around on the other Valentine Place buildings. So I also appreciate that this one has a more subdued palette, but yet a really exciting and dynamic facade. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Mitch?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I like metal panel buildings. We just seem to have a lot of them in Ithaca lately, but this metal panel is really interesting and really nice. So I appreciate you using a material that we've seen a lot of and using it in a really sophisticated, nice way. So I think it's great to see. Totally support the parking variance. Less off-street parking and more shared parking is a great idea. The lot size, I support more density here, and I think there's good logic behind it. I'd be careful about hiding the facade with shrubs that, the trees. I think there just needs to be some thought in terms of that front landscape so that it allows the architecture to read through along the street because it's so nice. And I just think this building has the potential to be one of the most interesting, unique buildings in Ithaca, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch. CJ?
Yeah, thanks for this. So are you thinking of doing something like a cross easement with the other building to support the parking, or are you thinking of just unbundling? Or I would just echo Mackenzie's comments about having transportation demand management narrative for the EAF to really support that. I mean, I know I don't think it's in the form districts as a requirement, but I think that would help you make a case for that. Yeah, it's really cool, and that's a really whimsical heart, and thanks very much.
And Elizabeth?
Thanks for your presentation. I actually don't have much to add. I look forward to learning more about the project and seeing the floor plans. And
thank you for that. I suppose one thing that I might add around the, I think you said the ground floor will be leasing office spaces, keeping those somewhat active and attractive as ground floor places. I mean, we're kind of on the edge of residential and commercial here near some intersections. So hopefully those are windowed spaces. It looks like they are. Yeah, sounds like you got a little bit of feedback, definitely the right direction. Any questions or comments for the board or staff from the applicant team? I suppose I'll look to Lisa to just make sure that proposed schedule is feasible or reasonable. And of course, some of it we just won't know till we get there.
We'll work with them to, review it and set up a schedule that makes sense. That looks reasonable to me based on the size of the project, but well, we have to really work through it in the pre-application process.
Wonderful. Well, in that case, we look forward to your submission early next year and to having preliminary review meetings before too long. Thank you for the sketch plan. Really nice.
Great. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Everybody have a
Thank
great
you.
holiday.
Thank you,
Thank you,
same to
everyone.
you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Bye. And with that, we can close out our site plan review portion of the meeting. And let us move on to Board of Zoning Appeals, 222 South Cayuga Street.
Take a minute.
Hotel. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this is one of many appeals you're going to get that are related to the recent revisions to the telecommunication ordinance. And which one required most projects to go through the BZA, and two had a provision in it for that telecommunications facilities had to be located. I can't remember the distance. Oh, I'm sure it's in here. 500 feet from residences, or 250 feet from adjacent residences. Right now, most of the facilities that we have are already existing on buildings, and they are in either on residential buildings or very close to residences. So they all now, these projects that you used to never see, they were just approved on a staff level. You'll see them all for variances because they don't meet this requirement of being 250 feet from residences. This is the first of many you will see.
Wonderful. So we're
facility. It's there. They're modifying it. They're adding a provider on top. It's on top of the Hotel Ithaca, and they don't meet the requirement to be 250 feet from the residence.
Anybody have any questions or comments about it?
It's just replacing what's there. So the visual impact is the same. Nothing changes really.
Well, it does change, and I'm happy to, usually I deal with these on a staff level, and I thought this one met that too. Often providers swap out antennas almost yearly on all of the facilities. This one is actually adding adding a provider and switching out where things are. I'm happy to show you the application if you're interested. I asked for visual simulations that I'm happy to show if you want me to.
I think that would be really helpful.
I have line drawings. I have line drawings too, but these are the visual simulations. So this is existing and proposed. Let's see if you can see it. So there's antennas here and existing. The proposed antennas will be up there. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm at the wrong. Let me get to the top. Okay, this is existing on this side. Proposed. So you'll see that there are antennas sticking up here. They're going to then be put on the side of the building.
It looks like less of a visual impact. It's an improved visual impact.
You can still see it, they're not, yeah. Right, this is existing, and this is what you're looking at here is this dish up there is going to be replaced by an actual antenna. So you see something different up here. I'm going to show you again. Existing, proposed. They did have an arm on this antenna that stuck it out over the edge of the building, and I asked them to pull it back, which they did. All right, one other one. This is, you see these antennas up here. It's going to be replaced by antennas that are along the side of the building. So those are the simulations I asked for. If you'd like to see the line drawings, I can show you those too.
I think the simulations are helpful. Anyone want to see line drawings?
No, but can you zoom in?
Zoom in? Sure. Good idea. So this is, all right, that's existing proposed,
Okay.
existing, proposed, existing, proposed.
Perfect.
Seems fine.
Seems completely fine.
Because, yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want to set a precedent necessarily of having this be within the, dedicated number of feet, but it's an existing, like, non-conformity. So I think it looks better. And yeah, we don't see any long-term negative impacts. I don't feel like that we need to be very, flourished in our recommendation to the BZA. Just it seems fine.
It's an existing, no long-term. Okay.
Yep. Great. Glad we're all in agreement about that. Okay, well, that brings us to old or new business. Anything from Lisa, Nikki, or Anya?
That we will send out a calendar invite for that special meeting so that no one forgets.
And then we have a training plan for February, which I think will be great with the BZA and Adam Walker, who you've seen before. That he made Chainworks EIS somewhat interesting. He's really good. He'll be talking to you and us about how to work better together between two boards, or how to work together. So that's great.
And we don't have a set time for that, right, Lisa? Not yet. It's February 15th, Tuesday, but I don't think we have a.
Yeah, we haven't set a time. I mean,
okay.
We'll ask people what if their preference is to start at 5 instead of 6, or what works.
I sort of feel like I forgot that we moved it from January to February, and I feel like we just, or at least I just confirmed, the applicant asked if it was still happening in January.
Different.
Two different things.
This is the training that we're talking about. We're talking about the training. Yes. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right. January 13th is the special meeting. February 15th is the BZA joint training. Okay. Thank you. And are we all required to conduct New York State anti-sexual harassment training?
You've probably, most of you, done it through your work. You could just either send it to me or Leslie Moskowitz, who I think has been in touch with you, the certificates that you get from your.
By the end of the year?
By the end of the year, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Wonderful.
I haven't done mine yet, so I have to do mine too. So.
Do any board members have any business to bring up? It doesn't look like it. Okay. I don't have any report from the chair seat. And we can't have a BPW report without Garrick. Lisa, any report from you?
I sent you all the ad for we're hiring a planner. So if you know anyone, please pass it on. But all I want to say is thank you so much for your service this year. Another unbelievably busy year. And Nikki and I are meeting tomorrow to look at the agenda for next year, because we've had lots of projects come through. So, it's going to be another busy year. So thank you so much. It looks a lot better because of you. Really appreciate your service and dedication.
I echo the thank you.
Just one quick thing that came up in the other meeting that I was helping broadcast to the live stream. The New York State, the governor's executive orders that extend our virtual meetings will be expiring in mid-January. So keep an eye and an ear open.
We'll let you know.
We may be renewed if they're not renewed, but probably going to be renewed, we hope, knock on wood.
We'll let you know what happens. And, if they don't get extended, we'll just do the same thing of trying to get people that are not, any members of the public to participate remotely.
Okay, well, thanks. Keep us posted.
We will.
Fingers crossed for the best for everybody.
Yeah. We expect that we will hear on January 14th. So.
Okay, perfect.
Was that what you expect, CJ? It's gonna be.
Totally.
Thank you, Lisa and Anya and Nikki for
Yeah.
all the work that you guys do. I mean, my
Yeah,
God,
absolutely.
that is just a ton of work. So you do
Unbelievable.
amazing work and stuff to keep this thing going. So thank you.
Yeah, you do. Well, with that.
Holiday hug to everybody.
Yeah, holiday hug.
Holiday
and
hug.
motion to adjourn. Emily moves.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting.
Anyone second?
Everybody
CJ
gets a break.
seconds. All in favor of adjournment? Mackenzie says yes. CJ, Mitch, Emily, Elizabeth, we all say yes. By show of hands. Yeah, see you next year. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Stay
holidays.
safe. Bye, everybody.